barren, but the Vice Chair and I are prepared to start as a subcommittee. We have, how many bills? 24 bills on calendar, so we'd like to get started. So with that, I will call the Senate Judiciary Committee to order, and would like to give you a little kind of heads up on what's happening. The following items have been pulled from today's agenda, and so they will not be heard. File item 7, AB 459 by Assemblymember Daley has been pulled. File item 30, AB 1383 by Assemblymember Jones has been pulled. And file item 33, AB 1520 by the Committee on the Judiciary has been pulled. So if you're here for those, unless you just want to stay and enjoy the afternoon with us, it's a little cooler than outside, you're more than welcome, but those bills will not be heard. Additionally, we have 7 items that are going to be on the consent calendar. File item 4, AB 264 by Assemblymember Dolly. Item 17, AB 731 by Assemblymember Gallagher. File item 23, AB 1116 by the Committee on Privacy and Consumer Protection. File item 27, AB 1323 by Assemblymember Frazier. File item 28, AB 1337 by Assemblymember Linder. File item 29, AB 1342 by Assemblymember Steinort. And file item 32, AB 1519 by the Committee on Judiciary. Those are all on consent and will be taken up at the appropriate time in a single vote on the consent calendar. So let's now turn to today's agenda. The process here is we will have, each bill will have 2 main witnesses, 2 minutes each in support. We'll then ask all those other folks who support to stand up and to present themselves, their name, affiliation, and position on the bill only. We will then call on the opposition, 2 witnesses, 2 main witnesses, 2 minutes each in opposition, and then all others in opposition will please just give us their name, affiliation, and their position on the bill. At this point in time, we do go in file order. File item 1, SCA number 2 by Senator Wynn, Public Post-Secondary Education. Good afternoon, and welcome, Senator Wynn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, Vice Chair Morlock, and members, today I am pleased to present Senate Constitutional Amendment 2, SCA 2, which would protect the right to display the American flag on the campuses of our state-funded colleges and universities. On March 5th, the Legislative Student Council of UC Irvine passed Resolution 50-70 prohibiting the display of any national flag in the student building. This resolution labeled the American flag as a weapon of nationalism and stated that it is used to construct cultural divisiveness. Subsequently, the Chancellor of UC Irvine, Dr. Howard Gilman, issued a statement labeling this as outrageous and indefensible. The resolution was quickly vetoed 6 days later following public outcry among students on campus who felt greatly misrepresented by their student council, which was only 6 students out of over 30,000 students at UC Irvine. Current statute requires the flags of the United States and California to be displayed in front of all state buildings. This includes every university, college, high school, and elementary school, both public and private, within the state of California. Generations of Americans from all ethnicity, socioeconomic classes have left their family and loved ones behind to defend the principle that allow us to fly the American flag on our home soil with pride and dignity. Students that live in America and receive taxpayers funds funded for their education should retain this sovereign right to fly the American flag. The American flag represents so many things to different Americans. As an immigrant who came to this country in search of freedom and democracy. I could not stand before you today as a state senator if it were not for the ideals of that American flag and what it represents. The Pledge of Allegiance is among the first things we learn in school as children. As senators, we pledge allegiance to the flag at the beginning of our session. Nationwide, fans at sporting events sing our national anthem in a right forever preserved to them by the First Amendment right. This bill simply clarifies that the right to display the American flag on U.S. campuses is considered a free speech right of students. That flag is so important to not only myself, but a majority of Americans and to the groups who are here today in support. My brother was also a United States Marine and fought under that flag. This measure has received support from numerous cities, veterans organizations, and individuals throughout the state, and not to mention hundreds of calls to my office in support of, and these are citizens of our state of California, and also around the nation. So to my knowledge today, as of this morning, we have not received any opposition to this measure. And I do have some witnesses and support.
Thank you very much. Witnesses and support.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairwoman, members. My name is Pete Conity, and I represent the veterans groups listed in support of this legislation. And although I could have brought hundreds of veterans here, I chose not to, so I could talk longer.
No, you still only get 2 minutes, sir, as much as I respect you and every organization you represent.
Okay, so if it's every organization, then I got about 10 minutes, right? But I will not take that much time. Okay. You know, the analysis seems to suggest that this is a freedom of speech issue, and I would respectfully disagree with that. You know, the flag is the unifying symbol of our country. We pledge allegiance to it. We don't pledge allegiance to a government. We don't pledge allegiance to a president. We don't pledge allegiance to a form or a government. We pledge allegiance to the flag. So it is the unifying symbol of our nation, which brings refugees from all over the world and always have. And veterans who serve under the flag and are buried under the flag, as well as our law enforcement and our first responders, have deep feelings about the flag. Now, it's okay to burn the American flag. That is a free speech issue. We don't like it, but that issue has been kind of settled by the Supreme Court. However, this is about a flag being barred on a campus that is funded by California taxpayers, including the 1.85 million veterans in the state. So I really don't think it's a freedom of speech issue. It's more about having the UC do the right thing. And to my knowledge, they have not bothered to take a position on this issue. The regents haven't taken a position on this issue. The UC administration has not taken a position on this issue, and I'm wondering why. The analysis seems to argue that because an uproar was caused and the resolution was rescinded, that's freedom of speech in action. I would respectfully disagree with that also. This was about placing a flag in a government funding, barring a flag from being placed in a government-funded location. So we would respectfully ask for an aye vote on this resolution.
Thank you very much, Mr. Conity. Any other witnesses in support? If you'd like to step forward. Do we have a microphone if there are people who would like to? All right. Anyone else in support? Is there any opposition to this measure? Well, go ahead, come on up. And if there are any people in support, please make your way up to the front here. And if there's any opposition, I see the ACLU is here. I don't know if they are going to be speaking or not, but if you are, make your way up if you would. Yes.
Hello, Sophia Sadat on behalf of the cities of Buena Park, Huntington Beach, La Habra, Los Alamitos, Mission Viejo, and Westminster in support.
Thank you very much. Other witnesses in support? Excuse me, could the sergeants get a microphone over in the side so we don't have to force all these people to win their way up here? Thank you. Good afternoon, sir.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Paul Gonzalez representing the city of Irvine in support.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else in support? All right, any opposition? Seeing none, open it up to the members. Senator Wojciechowski.
Mr. Conti, I think you misconstrue what this proposed constitutional amendment does. It does not go after the American flag. It goes after all the flags. And with that, Senator, can you respond to comment number 2 about the context neutral and viewpoint neutral aspects of the students' action? The analysis is pretty clear that this is what we're supposed to do in the constitutional field, is that we're supposed to be content neutral and viewpoint neutral, and while you may not have liked it, it banned all flags.
I wish you said something, the second part. Where are we looking at, Senator?
Page 4 of 5. The analysis talks about the First Amendment, what the Constitution protects. We're not supposed to pass laws that, we're supposed to pass laws that may restrict the First Amendment, but if they're content neutral and they're viewpoint neutral, then they're okay. They passed constitutional muster. This ordinance that these students put together banned all flags, not just the United States flag. You focused on that. They banned all flags. So it seems to pass the constitutional test. Which would make your constitutional amendment abhorrent to our California Constitution.
Senator, if you look at my bill, it specifically talks about the American flag, and we are in United States soil. We're not in other countries. The student body, if they choose to, they cannot have to fly any flags of other country. My amendment specifically talks about the United States flag. They should not ban the United States flag in our public institution that is funded by the state of California and the taxpayer.
Based on what constitutional premise is my question?
So what it is,
that's not content neutral.
Wait a second. Not both talking at once.
Sorry.
Would you finish your question and then please feel free to answer?
Based on what constitutional?
Senator, what it is that the university campuses are its own constitutional entity. They don't have to adhere by the state law that all state building needs to be flying the American flag. And that was passed in the 50s. Because it's its own constitutional entity, it in itself doesn't have to abide by that. It's an option. That's why when we as a state legislature ask the university not to do the increase in tuition, they can do it with or without us saying it. They don't care. They are their own constitutional entity, the state university. So that's why this has to be a Senate constitutional amendment and not just a resolution asking them to not do X. So that's why we have made this into a Senate constitutional amendment, because the university campuses are its own constitutional entity.
And since you asked me, you're suggesting that because they banned all flags, that therefore we shouldn't hold the American flag higher or put it in a special place?
I'm saying that the Constitution of the United States doesn't allow us to do that. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying I don't care about anybody's opinion. I'm saying the Constitution of the United States allows that type of law that is content neutral.
On government property. Is that what you're saying?
If I may, under Government Code Section 431, subdivision C and D, and it's referenced on page 3 of the analysis, existing California law requires the American and California state flags be prominently displayed during business hours upon or in front of the buildings or grounds of, or at specified places, including at the entrance or upon the grounds of each campus of the University of California, and at the entrance or upon the grounds or upon the administration building of every university, college, high school, and elementary school, both public and private, within the state. So, as I understand it, this is already required by law.
Yes, but since the provisions in the California Constitution defines the University of California as a public trust to be administered by the Board of Regents, the board holds the full power, subject to legislative control only for specific purposes, and holds all powers necessary for the effective administration of its trust. As such, the UC system can choose to ignore state statute and not define. I mean, that is not specific and not specifically defined by the California Constitution. We want to make sure that the university cannot ignore this statute. So all we're asking is that they are prohibited from banning the American flag, and that's it. They can't ignore it because they are defined as a public trust administered by the Board of Regents.
And the bill doesn't say they have to display it. The bill says they cannot ban the display of the flag.
Other than the student effort at, you know, Mr. Conity and I go back to days where they used to burn the American flag, and that was very upsetting, and the Constitution said that's okay. And in fact, I remember there were challenges when people would wear the American flag as a shirt or as a pair of shorts or in some fashion that many of us felt was disrespecting the flag. Yeah. But it was considered speech.
Yes.
And so there it is. We can burn the flag, and I guess some people do in instances, but so
they still do it, Madam.
And they can by First Amendment. So if we put this in context, the question then becomes, there was a student group that wanted to ban all flags, which may very well have been constitutional if it was content neutral and viewpoint neutral, right? But what happened actually here was that it actually created a very interesting First Amendment discussion, and they were quickly overruled. As outrageous as their behavior was, they were quickly overruled. And my understanding is that that all of the universities and all of these campuses do, in fact, fly the American flag and do, in fact, fly the California flag. It'd be interesting to see if the university takes the position that they don't have to, and I understand that's what you're trying to accomplish here.
Yes.
So I hope that's clarity. But, and it is too bad we don't have anybody here from the university. I don't think the university contests this.
They don't. Like I said earlier, as of this morning, we were not aware of any opposition to the bill from any individual or organization directly to my office. So we don't know.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm trying to get a handle on this, and I know this is very important, and, you know, many of us who have either first generation, second or third generation Americans, the flag is a very important symbol to us. And I always was very deeply offended, even when there were objections to certain conduct by the government, particularly the Vietnam War was a period when when the flag was being burned quite regularly. We're deeply offended by this. I ask whether or not this is a constitutional amendment, and if it does pass this committee, it will be going to the Appropriations Committee.
I don't think
it goes to elections, yes. And then it would go to Appropriations. So it does have a number of rounds it would have to make, but I'm trying to understand why we need this. I mean, we fly that flag, and I think the universities, I don't think have ever challenged. My point was, do they challenge their obligation under Government Code Section 431 C and D, or do they accept that as something that they abide by, as well as other government agencies. I understand what you're saying, but is this really a problem?
Madam Chair, I was asked that question many times during the time when I was looking at this. I have never thought that I would ever question the American flag being flown, ever. And, we just look at it as it has been questioned, unfortunately, by a group of students, 6 of them, to be exact.
They were overturned quickly.
Well, actually, Madam Chair, what happened, though, is they were overturned. It happened on a Thursday, Friday. They were overturned on Saturday. Then on Tuesday, they were going to have another hearing to override the override. And then it got canceled because there were, lots of protests and et cetera. That student body, actually, Madam Chair, has the ability to bring it back any time. They just have chose not to at this time. The reason for the bill is to never allow it to be questioned again, and never to be, I'm a UC Irvine alum, graduated there, went to school there. If I wanted, as a student, to fly the American flag, it should not be banned, been doing so. And so that's the reason for this that we felt is necessary, is that the university is administered by its own region. They can't ignore it. Thank goodness they haven't yet, but the students has. A group of students has decided to do so at one point. Has it been override? Yes. Can they bring it back? Absolutely. So the question for us as legislative bodies is, do we allow this to be questioned again, and especially in a university campus that are state-funded campuses? And that's it. But Madam Chair, I've heard the concerns. Let me continue to work with the committee, and I would like this bill to be held in committee today. Then, I heard the concern from you and the senator. I'm willing to work with the committee to find amendments that we can appropriately address these concerns, especially when it comes to the First Amendment that has been put into analysis.
And you realize the irony is they could go ahead and burn the flag, and that would be okay. But their decision, so the First Amendment can be a very interesting issue, which is why I was hoping we might hear from the ACLU. But I totally respect what you're trying to do. It's this First Amendment has created a very fascinating challenge to us all.
And Madam Chair, if I may add, is that you're right. Individuals can burn the American flag, but the university campuses in itself is a government-funded
Understood.
entity.
Well, we'll look for,
and that's what I'm looking at, is the entity itself should not ban the flag. As us individuals, if I want to display it at UC Irvine, I should be able to. Or I can choose to burn it. I would be the one burning it. That flag means way too much to me.
Well, I appreciate that, and I think that's shared by many of us. And let us continue to work together. I appreciate your effort and the discussion today.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All righty. All right, so we're going to keep working on that, and let's go on now. We have lost a member, but we're going to keep going forward, still working as a subcommittee. We have, I know she's here, but we also have Mr. Lowe. Assemblymember Lowe, I think you've been here. Let's go there, and then we'll go to Assemblymember Campos, so I can't see over the chair. And I can relate to that experience. I'm so sorry. All right, Assemblyman, please go ahead. Again, we are in file order, but we will go next with the Assemblymember Campos, and then in file order.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, for allowing me to present Assembly Bill 883. I know that the committee was kind enough to allow my staff member to spend last time around, and I simply ask for a vote, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. And I believe that we also have some individuals who are here to also testify in support should that be.
Thank you. I would like to look at this as with fresh eyes. It was our last bill last time. It was presented by staff. There had been a lot of questions, and I appreciate your willingness to bring it forward today. Do you have any witnesses here in support?
Sure, I believe she ran upstairs. Sounds like we have some individuals running around.
I can't imagine that's happening today. All right, so then let's go ahead. Last week, a concern was raised as to how this bill would affect private employers, but this bill apparently primarily affects public employers who disqualify applicants because of their current or former status as a public employee, or if they're a member in a government retirement program. Is that correct?
That's correct. Ms. Christie is also here to speak in support as well, but if I might also just make a clarification, Senator Hertzberg also inquired about an issue related to an opportunity to cure, and I want to just reiterate the point that this bill does focus on the provisions that would not be at sections of the Labor Code. Therefore, any violations of this bill would be subject to the right to cure. So just a clarification on that point to address Senator Hertzberg's initial questions for clarification standpoint. And
I'm sure he's channeling the hearing, so he will make sure he knows that, though. I appreciate that. Witnesses in support, if you could respond to that very specific concern that was raised, how this bill, I think the opposition had mentioned something about the private sector. We know, if I'm not mistaken, most of this really is directed at the public sector, but could you respond to that issue?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Christy Bauma on behalf of the California Professional Firefighters, pleased to be sponsors of this measure. And you're right that two of the major instances where we saw this sort of behavior and activity were public employers. I think we took the view that discrimination is discrimination, and I know that our author has engaged with the opposition as to whether it is appropriate to narrow it or otherwise, but at this point, we are applying it broadly across all employment sectors to set a bar and a standard about employment discrimination.
Thank you. And as I understand it, there are amendments that you have accepted?
Yes, the committee's amendments.
All right, so those are author's amendments?
Yes, thank you for that clarification.
Okay, thank you. Other witnesses in support?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Afrag Vargas for the California State Firefighters Association, also proud to associate ourselves, support this bill.
Very good, thank you. Any other witnesses in support? Witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition? Understanding there were amendments that were taken as author's amendments, and Senator Hertzberg, the Assemblyman just confirmed for us in response to your concern of last week that there is an opportunity to cure.
That's correct.
All right.
Yes, and I'd also, if I might also indicate it in the letter and met with Senator Hertzberg to also address his concerns as well.
Excellent. Very good. Thank you. We're going to clean this up quickly and early today. Very good. Opposition, please come forward.
Jennifer Barrera on behalf of the California Chamber of Commerce, we are opposed. Just to address the issue with regards to the right to cure, we agree with the Assembly member that under the Labor Code Private Attorney General Act, this would fall under the 33-day right to cure. I don't know of any right to cure, however, under the Business and Professions Code Section 17200, which is another issue that was raised last week. And then to the point that I raised in committee last week, while I believe that there would be a way in which to cure an advertisement or some type of offer that specified that public sector employees shouldn't apply or something along those lines. I don't know how an employer who chooses not to hire an applicant because of some other objective reason not based upon their public employee status would be able to cure that violation under the Private Attorney General Act even with that. So we still have concerns on that aspect. And as mentioned before, we have raised whether or not it is appropriate to include the private sector in this proposal because there has been no incident or evidence that this has ever occurred. And so from our perspective, if it's not addressing any known discrimination, it's just creating additional avenues of litigation against our employers, which we have a concern with. But to recognize that the author has been willing to work with us on a lot of these issues, and we look forward to continuing to work with him if this bill continues to move. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, Chris McKaylee on behalf of the Civil Justice Association of California, and we share the concerns that Ms. Barrera indicated from the Cal Chamber. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. Any other witnesses in opposition? All right, seeing none, let's bring it back to the committee. I want to thank the Assemblyman for helping clarify this a little bit, and I know that Senator Hertzberg has some questions, so Senator Hertzberg, the floor is yours.
I just want to thank you, Mr. Assemblyman. I apologize. Last week we asked a few questions, and there was a little pause in terms of some of the issues, but I appreciate the graciousness and thoroughness with which you cleared it up. Appreciate it very much. Happy to support the measure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Senator Morlock.
And thank you, Madam Chair. I'm at the opposite spectrum. After 20 years in public life, I have never seen an incident of this nature, and I just don't see the need for the bill, so I'll be opposed.
Well, we will see going forward. Would you respond to the concern that by creating this criteria that it would be very difficult to disprove if someone was not hired for a position? And I guess the representation is and that it didn't have anything to do with their prior employment status. How does that get addressed in your bill?
Sure, and thank you very much for the clarification, and again, for allowing me to present here today as well. I have the advertisement of an example specifically about the discrimination that occurs, and this bill, when specifically looking at the language, it addresses the issue of posting as is. And so the language when posting for the job opportunity, it's very clear that when focused on the area in terms of the internet posting or posting on paper, whatever promotional material, specifically no discrimination specifically outlining that of previously have worked for an agency before, that's where it clarifies that issue. And so to answer your question and address that issue at hand, it's specifically to the language at hand in the publications.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Thank you. Any other discussion? Senator Morlock.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I haven't seen the posting, but there are some public agencies that are reluctant to hire public employees from other agencies because of the perception that there would be double dipping. Is that what you're trying to raise?
The issue at hand is essentially just discrimination, blatant discrimination of any sort, to say that on the posting, we don't want any public official to participate and be part of our organization. This is flat out, and I know that witness also would have some insight as this as well, but the intent specifically is to give everyone that equal opportunity and access. That's fundamentally what this bill is trying to address, and if the chair might allow.
Please.
Christy.
Madam Chair, thank you. Just a point to acknowledge that this legislature actually addressed the issue of double dipping. This bill has absolutely nothing to do with that. Someone who has retired from a public agency and returns to service either has to reinstate and cease receiving their retirement benefit, or they can't come back to work for an extended period of time. So this legislature responded to that a couple years ago.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. With that, seeing no other questions, I'm assuming you'd like to ask for an aye vote.
That is correct, and thank you again for the opportunity to present before you.
Thank you very much, and as soon as we get a quorum, we will be able to make a motion, and we will certainly do that. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.